Welcome to my podcast, Bathrobe Conversations with Black Women. I am your host, Rona Muhammad, and I am here with the reason for the season. How this podcast came about, my partner in crime, I don't even like that term, partner in crime, I have to have another C, because I like my PIC, but the C don't have to stand for something else. We'll have to figure that out. But this podcast came about because during COVID, everybody's isolated, and I have this great group of women and friends that I love to not only talk to, but I like to see them. And Maekah and I live in Atlanta together. She is the catalyst to how I got to Atlanta when I relocated in 2019 from Maryland, and we work together. We're both, project managers in healthcare IT. We are business partners, and so we have to talk about something. And so every time I would call her, I would always video chat her, and we didn't even allow the separate phone situation stop us. Like, I have an iPhone, she has an Android, and so we just discovered Google Duo. And every time I would press that little button to call her, we would both show up in our bathrobes, like bonnets on or headscarves or whatever. And we would engage in these conversations that were like life-changing conversations for us. And Maekah said, what would be great is if we could record these and post them online, because we were both getting so much out of the conversations. It's like, if these conversations are helping us, I mean, if somebody else can hear it, maybe it can help someone else too. So that's how we got here. And fast forward, it's my birthday. We are in Las Vegas, and we are celebrating that. And I had the opportunity to invite, all of my very close girlfriends who I love to come here, and everybody said yes. And we are recording, recording the first season of this podcast, and all of its perfections and imperfections. It is what it is, which is also the premise that as Black women, no matter how we show up, even if we're in our bathrobes, we're enough. So I want to introduce to my audience, to the world, or for whoever's going to see this podcast, my friend, my good friend, I still got to figure out what that C is.
Yeah, I'm going to figure it out.
My PIC.
Cohort? No, that's too formal.
Yeah.
Figure that.
This is Maekah, y'all. Maekah Brownfield. Hey, girl. So I am asking all of my guests, Maekah, the same question, and I am so happy that this question came to me, because the answers that I have been getting are as unique to the Black woman who shows up in the guest seat. And I have no doubt that your answer is going to be equally as unique, but also probably very as thought-provoking as well, because you're a very a cerebral person. That's something we have in common. So I'm going to ask you the same question, and that is, what has your experience been like as a Black woman?
It's been tough.
Okay.
Being a Black woman, on top of being a woman of color, or being just a woman plus being a woman of color, it has lots of challenges, but it has lots of rewards.
Yes.
So I have to first start off by saying that I would be nothing else. If I came back 10 lifetimes in a row, I would always come back as a Black woman.
Right.
It's tough because sometimes we are misunderstood, not rightfully so, because we truly are, in my opinion, and as it's been said, the mother of creation, the base for life. And I feel like that's how we live our lives.
Absolutely.
Making sure that everyone else is okay, always neglecting ourselves, never putting ourselves first. So it's challenging because we're always an afterthought.
Say that.
To others and to ourselves.
Right.
So it's been also a challenge just learning to remember myself, honor myself. That is a new term that I say anytime that I get a chance. Honor myself, and I do. So I guess, just to sum it all up, it's a challenge, but it's a welcoming challenge, and I'm up for it. I live in this skin, so I don't really have a choice, and I will continue to wear it as a badge of honor for as long as I live.
Like I said, I knew you was just gonna come on here and do that and that. So I've been doing also the same kind of thing as talking about each one of my guests, how we met, right? I'm not gonna tell the story. But Maekah and I met on a project in Maryland, and she actually was the person doing the interviewing to hire, people to come on, different consultants to come on to work on the project. And Maekah interviewed me, and in the interview, that's how we met. I'm not gonna go any further.
You can. I feel like at this point you should.
Okay. Because I'm all about honoring people's feelings and voices and how comfortable they are.
It's not even that I'm upset about how we met, it's just that I hear it all the time from oh gosh, and I'm a very, this is me, like I don't like to be talked about, I don't like to be revered or anything, but that's all. So go ahead, girl.
And did you hear that? She said she doesn't like to be revered. And just even hearing you say that, you are not alone in that. And it goes on back to what you're saying as a Black woman and being an afterthought. Who knew that you even had to learn how to feel comfortable with someone giving you, praise.
Your flowers, as they call it, right?
Absolutely, your flowers. And praise, because we're both very spiritual women too. Not to be confused with all the praise that should go to God. But if God created us, right, after his image and likeness, and we are supposed to be, representatives of him, and it's my belief that God uses the flesh to deal with the flesh, then also the ability to receive praise, right? Who knew that was something that you have to learn how to be comfortable in that space? Because as you said, as Black women, as young Black girls watching our Black mamas, they not get the praise, they not get the compliments, they not get the thank yous. We learn subconsciously that that's just how it is.
And it should be a byproduct of the blessing, right? So when you pour into people, whenever you do God's work, that's his way of tangibly showing you that you did a good job.
Absolutely.
So it's almost like not blasphemous, but you're not honoring God by allowing yourself to accept the praise through other people or through your works. So
right.
It's all part of the process.
And I just really think that that's something that we should put on the forefront instead of putting subconsciously in our head. I was watching a comedian, and they were saying that, Black women, we don't really know how to compliment. Like, instead of saying you look nice, or, oh, I like your outfit, where are you going?
Are you looking nice for this type of person or this type of thing?
Or Amanda Seals, as my nephews thought that I was her, and her, okay, polka dots, like, that's us. But again, that's all part of that goes way back to that, I feel like, right? Us not receiving it, we don't even really know subconsciously that we're not doing it. And the reason why we're not doing it is because it wasn't done to us. And so anyway, back to how we met. So we met, and Maekah is very serious about her business, right? As a project manager and running a team, she's like, job got to get done, no foolishness. And so when she interviewed me, she was just very stoic. Is that a good word?
How about straight-laced?
She was straight-laced. No smile, no, and when I learned something about myself, that when I'm uncomfortable, I will crack a joke. And I need to break all the tension in the room, mainly for nobody else, but for myself, so I can kind of settle into myself and then really settle into my self-confidence, because in an interview, you're presenting yourself, right? And so Maekah none of that was, do you have these skills? How confident are you in you having these skills? And the other two people that were with her, she was like, well, does anybody else have any questions or anything they would like to find out? They were like, no, you doing a great job. We good. We don't got nothing to say. And I walked away from the interview thinking, oh, I didn't, okay, on to the next. I didn't know about this job before. I drove 45 minutes out to Baltimore County for this job. I'll just go on, to the next. And the consultant firm that had contacted me and that had presented me for the job called and said, "Oh, they liked you. They want you to start tomorrow." I was like, "Really? Okay." So I'm like, "Sure, let's go." Where they want me. And then I came on to the project, now coming into a whole different world, because I had healthcare experience. I'd worked many years in the healthcare environment, but I didn't know about this new environment that I was stepping into, which was EMR implementations. IT, healthcare IT, right? And so that was Maekah's lane, her world, and I came onto the job, and I have this thing about me that I love Black people. You talked about being a Black woman and choosing it 1,000 times. If they asked you when you come back what you want to be, I'm gonna say a Black woman all the time. I'm not gonna say a Black man. I want to be a Black woman because I love Black people. And so when I'm in an environment, and I came from a Black institution, I had been on Howard University's campus for forever, working at the hospital, and then I come to University of Maryland, and I'm seeing all these Black people in IT, right? And so that was new for me. I was like, what world is this? And coming in there and experiencing all of that, and then watching someone as a Black person managing and running a project, and then managing white people. So at Howard University, I was watching Black people manage Black people, right? So that was a different look. Like, okay, this is all new. And I was like, am I in Kansas, or I'm in the Wizard of Oz? Like, I don't want to click my heels. I don't want to go anywhere. Like this is great. And so I would watch Maekah conduct these meetings. And in conducting these meetings, I'm very straightforward too, right? And so I have been charged with being rude and, all of this other stuff. And so watching you in these meetings, kind of just being very straightforward, straight to the point. Another thing that I didn't know about the healthcare IT world is that people talk over people, and that's not considered rude. It's just like when you're talking, and if you're not communicating what needs to be communicated, whoever is conducting the meeting is going to stop you, and they're not going to just say, hold up. They're just going to overtalk you and then just kind of steer the conversation back. So that dynamic was happening. I ain't never seen no Black woman overtalk white people. I'm just saying, y'all, that's my own personal experience. I ain't got nothing to tell nobody else about theirs. And I was fascinated by it. And so I remember coming out of one of the meetings, and I asked her, what did I ask you?
When's your birthday?
When is your birthday?
July.
And she looked at me first and was like, why? I was like, because I am just curious. I just want to know, because I have an affinity for cancers. My mom, her birthday is July 6th. She was the very first Cancer that I ever met. Even though she didn't raise me, I fell in love with her and everything about her. And I don't know, so I know that was my first connection to Cancer women. And so when she said, why? I was like, I'm just curious, because I was just like feeling this pull. And I was like, I already know what it is. I was like, I already know she's Cancer, but let me just see. And so I was like, when's your birthday? I just want to know. And she was like, July 2nd. I was like, we're going to be best friends. And she said, what did you say?
Can we just get through this project?
She's like, we just got to get through this project first.
Don't roll my eyes?
Maybe. Because I don't know. But that did not none of that.
Didn't deter you.
It don't move me. Because listen, I'm so cemented in, who I am and what I know and what I knew at the moment in time in terms of just watching her. And then that was 2017?
Mm-hmm.
How many years later? Here we are?
Yeah. 4 years later?
Okay. All right. Okay, girl. 5 years later.
Yeah.
Give me put some respect on my years,
all
man.
Right, all right.
5 years later, here we are. And I've come down to Atlanta, and our friendship has really blossomed. And that has a lot to do with you, and I think your subconscious, intuitive nature to, like you said, allow yourself to be used And there's a saying in the Nation of Islam, I want for my sister what I want for myself. And so that's something I feel that you kind of embodied. And when I got down to Atlanta and I got with my, came with my little sons, and they, upon meeting you, they just felt the connection. And, Muslim children don't have godmamas, but they was like, can you be our godmama? And she was like, I don't know what that means, but okay. Like, is that the same in Christianity? Like, do they have the same duties and responsibilities? And so, I get to Atlanta and then just kind of off to the races. And one of the things that made me really, I always talk about having tangible examples. And you are a serial entrepreneur. Like, y'all, all my friends, when I say they're bosses, they are bosses. But not because they're walking around like, I'm the boss. They are the boss of their own lives and really their own kind of destinies, right? And so you, not only are you a real estate investor, you wear that hat, but you also are super creative. So we have our candles here. Can somebody from the couch aid me? Maekah made this candle that smells amazing. She makes jewelry. So talk to me and my audience about how you first, just where are you from, how you got to Atlanta, how and what made you want to get into real estate. Was that a desire of yours even? And then how did you, how are you finding the balance from still being, a PM, and you've been doing that for what, 20 years? Mm-hmm. And then now finding the balance for all the things that you're now seeing yourself activate.
Sure. So I'm originally from Miami, Florida. And to be quite honest and transparent, I have always wanted to be in Atlanta. And I am from a Caribbean household, so I'm first generation American. Both of my parents are Jamaican. And if you know anything about Caribbean people at all, it's like a mini cult. So you can't, like, my dad did not want me to leave the state. He did not want me to leave the city. He wanted me to go to a local school. So we kind of just found our way in the middle, and I ended up going to school in North Florida, University of Florida. But my heart has always been in Atlanta. Why? I don't know. I think it's just because I wanted to be away from my family. I wanted to know what it was like to not be up under my family.
Right.
So upon graduating, there was a guy that I was dating in college, and he just happened to be from Atlanta. So I found that as my excuse for coming to Atlanta. Right after, after I had worked in Florida for about a year, I moved to Atlanta. But I'm smart. So even though there was a man in the mix, I was in grad school. So that was my main purpose for going, even though I was following this boy.
This the justification in our mind that we do.
So I moved there in 1999 behind this man that I was madly in something with. I don't know if it was love, but it was something.
In something.
Yes. And
that might be a t-shirt. I'm in something.
Yes.
I don't know if it's love.
It was something. And so
madly in something.
After being with him for 6 years, we had moved in together, and within 6 months, I was like, I can't do this, because what you're not gonna do, and the list goes on. And I jumped in my Toyota Tercel, spent the night in the car, didn't know what I was gonna do, but I wasn't gonna be disrespected. That's what I knew.
Come on.
And then I ended up staying with a girlfriend for about a week, and then moving into my own place. And from there, I just flourished. So I completed grad school. I ended up working at one of the largest children's hospitals in the area, or the only one, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. And because of the disparity between kind of what my white counterparts made and me with an advanced degree, and I knew what they made, I was like, I'm more than this, and I'm gonna find a way to advance myself. So fast forward to a couple years later, after kind of working full time in the healthcare system, I went to consulting, and I've been doing healthcare consulting for the last 10 years of my life. During that time, I did meet a man, and I did get married to him. and he was very instrumental in kind of how I got into real estate. This man is a jack of all trades.
Good old Mr. Sir.
Yes, Mr. Sir. That's what we're gonna call him, Mr. Sir. And he knew the real estate portion. He knew the mortgage portion. He could do the fixing up portion, and I was kind of the credit and money behind it. So we did that for about 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Went through the crash, and I had learned to just really love real estate. And the fact that I had this man on my team that I was married to, and he was good with his hands, that's really what birthed my love for real estate. So, you know, over that time, we had amassed lots of properties, rented, flipped, and all of that. Unfortunately, our marriage did not last. We did end up getting a divorce, but we are kind of like the best of friends.
Right. I can attest to that.
As you know, Rona. So he ain't really gone nowhere.
Divorce is true. Like they say, what is a marriage license? Just a piece of paper? That divorce is just a piece of paper.
Yeah,
literally.
But he's not my man.
Let's make that clear.
For the people in the back.
Absolutely.
He does have his own residence, and he is not my man. Yes, but we do have custody.
Say that again.
Co-custody of a dog. So
right.
Just moving on from there, that he created this entrepreneurial spirit in me because he was also a man that had to have a very fluid life because he was a single dad, which is very rare. And so just kind of watching him in the way that he was able to move through life, do whatever I needed to do while I was traveling away from work and handle the business, that really, really interested me. So then I became interested in doing other things, right? So I've continued to do real estate investing, and Rona and I had then recently, within the last 2 years, began an RV business, right? So we have an RV that we rent through a couple places online, and that's been going pretty well also.
I want to go back to something you said because it's super important. And that is the fact that you came to Atlanta, you know, you were in a relationship with a man. That was a very pivotal, and you were in a transitory place. And then when the relationship didn't work out, you left him because you had enough self-worth not to stay in a situation that wasn't serving you. And you went and slept in your car for one night. So essentially you were homeless. And with this advanced degree that you were earning, like I just, because there may be someone, there may be a person who is at a low point and they're thinking that, you know what, this is it, right? My relationship is not working. Things are bad. I'm homeless, and like I want to give up. And you decided this is just a moment in time, and you didn't let yourself give up. And then to go from there to then being in a place of going on, getting your degree, and then getting a good paying job, like a good job, even though, you know, before you got into consulting, you were, you know, earning a great wage. And then you became a consultant, and then you got into real estate. It's like, I'm in awe, because at each point in life, we come to crossroads. And you just decided at that crossroad, when the relationship didn't work out, you're in a whole new city. You're not where your family is, right? And you just decided, instead of going down the road of, this is it, I'm giving up, you went down the road of perseverance.
So let me qualify that a little bit. I didn't make that decision on my own.
Okay.
Because I serve a higher being.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that.
So for me,
that's a snap from the couch.
Right. So for me, I am very faith-based. So I know if God brought me to it, He's gonna bring me through it. We're just gonna call it what it is. So at the point that I knew that I had to make that decision, I left it to God, and that's how I've done my whole life. That's why I have so many different tracks that you see me through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Through real estate investing, through the job that I got that was kind of just like fell in my lap. There's pretty much nothing I won't say no to.
Okay.
Right? I'll try something at least once. And that's why my resume is as diverse as it is. That's why I'm as malleable as I am,
Mm-hmm.
because I am not a judgmental person, and I'm not somebody who won't try something.
Right.
So I think that's another reason why God uses me, because I'm open and I'm a vessel.
Right.
And he deposits in me what he wants me to be able to share. So that's how I live my life.
Yeah.
I pride myself in knowing that not my will, but his will.
Right.
And so everything that I do, especially when I've learned that every time I've done something my way, it never works. I was tired of getting, insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I was tired of doing that. So I just came to a point where I was just like, I'm done. What you gonna do?
Right.
And so from that perspective, ever since I have truly turned it over to God, my life has truly changed.
And so for me, I'm glad you quantified that, because even people who believe in God, who have strong faith, they say that. It all sounds great in theory, right? It all sounds amazing in theory. And when you're on a high, it's like it's easier to say, thank you, God, and my faith is strong, and I love the Lord. But it's at the low point, and I don't know how much lower you could be sleeping in your car, that still you said, come on, God, my faith in you is what it is. I need you to get me through this. And to truly exercise, your faith.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in awe. I'm in awe. I just want to talk about, the real estate situation. You got introduced by Mr. Sir. Because I don't even like calling him your ex-husband, because I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings, or people still adjusting. And then you got into real estate. You're still working as a consultant full-time, and in the EMR implementation world, which for you, for 10 years, that meant traveling and living out of hotels and living in other states. How did you balance managing, because you have several properties now in this portfolio, which means you were renting to tenants, and I want you to talk about too your choice of selection for your tenants, because I think that that's important that people know. Once everybody says, oh, I want to get into real estate because I want to buy a property and I want to rent it out, right? And I think that, again, from a theoretical standpoint, it sounds great, but they don't think about the screening process of tenants, how to choose tenants, the whole shebang. You're managing, if something gets broken, that's on you, right? That it needs to be fixed. Here you are still operating in a full-time world, PM. You might be in Florida, or you might be in Chicago, you might be in Minnesota, you might be in Texas. How did you manage that? And then I want to ask, what advice? Because now I feel like in this present day, especially in Atlanta, but in other cities, everybody's into real estate, right? Everybody got their real estate license, or as an investor, or a flipper, whatever term that they choose to use. What advice would you give to someone?
So I'll start there with the advice.
Okay.
I think anything in life that you want to put your hand to, you need discipline. So that means making sure that your finances are correct, making sure that your credit is correct, because unfortunately, in order to play in these spaces, you kind of have to have those things intact. So for me, that's one thing. And again, kind of growing up, the things that you kind of see either pull you towards the situation or put you in the polar opposite. So for me, my childhood situations kind of were used as a learning point and a base point for me to say, oh, that's not what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go over here and do something different. So I've always had good credit. I've always been a good saver. And I've always been someone who's open. And I think that is really a talent, for somebody to be open and be able to just suck in information, and be able to be humble.
Okay.
I'm very big on humility. So you got to kind of have a base attitude or a base, just a base
disposition.
Right, right. And so I think that's the first thing. The second thing is I was fortunate because of my connection with Mr. Sir that he had a lot of this kind of already in place. So, you know, just kind of tightening up the reins with kind of what his skills were, making sure that the processes and policies were in place to do that. For example, with our leases, making sure that I had all the right verbiage in there, consulting my lawyer to make sure that I had, you know, things that protected me, and also my tenant. Because one thing about me is I try to be very fair. So yes, you do need money. That's not a lie. And you do need credit to be able to purchase real estate. I'm not a person that likes to pool my money, so I want to be one of those people that's at the forefront and able to make the deal happen. I'm not discouraging anybody to do that. If you have to pool your resources, most definitely.
Right.
Find people that you can trust, and that have the same amount of, or the same, wherever you are, that they can match you.
Right.
Right.
And they share your vision.
And they share your vision, right. So I think those things are important. Now, as far as kind of how I've been able to manage this through the times, I've gotten the system down, right?
Okay.
So Mr. Sir has continued to kind of help with all of the management and collecting of the rents and, you know, all the fixing, because that is his skill. So that has been a big part of it.
Okay.
I think one thing that God has also blessed me with is back in the day when I was doing this, I was always making sure that I was not doing it from a greed perspective, or it wasn't just about the money. It's never just about that, because, you know, if you have a passion for something, or if you're good at something, all of that will come, especially if you're in order. So those things have just kind of fallen into place for me. When we talk about screening of my tenants, I live in the real world, and I know that everybody doesn't have good credit. I know that probably 50 to 70% of the people out there don't have good credit. And all of my tenants have below the credit score. But I look at the big picture, because just because some person may have had a moment in time that messed them up does not mean that they're not going to be good paying tenants.
Absolutely.
So I look at the whole picture, and I'm very unconventional. So I look at references, I do interviews, you know, I look at how long you've been paying your rent where you were before, because you could have a 0 credit score, but because you make money, you're able to pay your rent.
Right, right.
And actually, all of my tenants pay their rent the month before, like the last 2 days before, and they're not your conventional tenants.
Right.
I'll just say it like that.
Right.
So I don't believe in discrimination. I believe everybody deserves a chance. And I find reward in being able to say at the end of the lease or whatever, that now you can go buy your own house. And God used me to be able to make that happen for you. So for me, my gratification is always in being used. And that is I think my love language, or what makes me really happy, is service. I am a woman of service.
Right.
So I want to make sure that I'm serving the people. I'm taking care of those that I can touch. I can impart whatever I have in myself to make it better for somebody else. I always try to do that. And I mean, I'm not that old.
Right.
But I do have a lot of experience, and I want to be able to share whatever I have. I'm not one of those people that say, "Oh, girl, you gotta pay me for this," because I'm also a person, because of my faith, that believes what's for me is for me, and you're not gonna do it like I'm gonna do it, and I'm not gonna do it like you're gonna do it. So we operate in the spaces and the gifts that God gives us, and we'll have the provisions.
I'm just shining bright because I'm just like listening to you, and I'm like, that's my friend. Like, she's my friend. Like, I keep saying this, that I have some amazing friends, and it's because when I think about them, I think about their hearts, right? And so that's what.
Let's keep going.
Okay. So something else I want to talk about with you, because you are a person of service, and I talked about how when my sons first met you, and them asking you as these little Muslim children that don't know no better, for you to be their godmama, and you don't have any children of your own. And I just want to talk about, like, because we're not, there's not a big difference in our age, even though whenever we're out, people always talk about her being my daughter. Now
But
we're getting sisters and twins. Right. We got twins at the airport,
Yes.
which I will take that
Yes.
over this woman. That's the same thing with Jamie. Oh, your daughter. No, she a whole grown woman with her own 3 children. That is not my daughter. Being disrespectful. Anyway, your maternal side always comes out when you are around my sons. And it's always just kind of wonderful to watch. And I've always wondered and thought, like, your thoughts or feelings on, you know, not being a mom. And can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm one of 10 children, and out of the 10 children, I'm the only one that doesn't have any.
Wow.
So I made that realization a couple months ago, and it kind of bummed me out just a little bit. And when I was younger, it just didn't happen. It's not that I couldn't have kids. I've been pregnant before. But it just wasn't in God's plan for me. And I always go back to that what is for me, and that my life is not by chance. The way that my life has turned out has turned out exactly the way that it's supposed to be. And I have to be respectful of that. I have to be okay with that. There was a couple of years when I was married and we were trying to have kids that I was bummed out about it a little bit, but you know, now that I'm perimenopausal,
which we're gonna talk about next. We're gonna talk about that thing.
And I've kind of gotten over that hump. I have to say that I have so many more children outside of my womb than I would have ever had in my womb. So I'm a godmother. I'm a godmother to tons of children. I have nieces and nephews that.
Oh my gosh.
Skylar Rose, that's
yes.
my baby girl.
I wasn't gonna say her name, but I'm
yes.
glad you did. I was gonna call her SR, honey. I'd be in competition with her, honey, and I lose every time.
Yes. So at the end of the day, I don't feel like I have missed out. If I were to have children, it would have to have been birthed out of me, because I've also been asked, why don't you adopt?
Right.
No, I got to be very honest with myself. If I were to have children, I would want to birth them. That's
okay.
just my personal preference.
Right.
And if I birthed one, then I probably could go adopt one. But I would want to have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point in my life, you know, I am coming into my own. I am extremely happy for the wisdom. I don't think I would ever backtrack, you know,
okay.
although there's things that come with getting older.
Right.
But I definitely don't feel like I necessarily missed out on anything. Because like Rona was saying, I've got her 2 boys.
Mm-hmm.
I've got godchildren. I've
mm-hmm.
got nieces. I've got nephews. I've got children that don't even belong to me that still love me. And I think that's priceless. And so I just
Absolutely.
thank God for
Absolutely.
those opportunities,
yeah.
that He's placed them in my life and trusted me, because I do have the opportunity to still influence. I
mm-hmm.
can still love. I can still leave things to them when I die. They can still take care of me.
Absolutely.
If something happened to me, because
right.
you have some parents or some families that birth children and they'll never take care of their parents. So I don't
exactly
ever
right.
look at that as a marker
right.
or a reason to have children, although people have said that to me, well, you ain't gonna have nobody to take care of me. And then I look at you and say, well, you may not have anybody take care of you either.
Well, right.
So, you know, I'm okay. I'm good, actually.
Yeah,
I'm good.
I'm glad I asked you that question.
Yeah, I'm good.
Because again, that's something else that as Black women, the pressure. Dawn talked about the pressure of getting married, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I'm so glad I asked you that question, because I was teetering on, should I ask her? Should
mm-hmm.
I not ask her? But I just really, because I know you
mm-hmm.
and I intuitively trust myself,
mm-hmm.
I knew asking you that question was going to yield the answer that you gave. And I feel like, again, any woman listening to that, and you know, I'm 49 this weekend, y'all. And like I said, she ain't far away from that. But anybody who's at that place, and if you haven't had children, that's something that you have to think about, because you know, we're approaching 50, right? And so we're thinking about life on the other side. And you mentioned this word, honey, that just kind of came upon, again, something else that happened with her and I when I moved to Atlanta, is just like I don't know about the moons rising over everybody's house, and everybody kind of hormones, you know, kind of coming together, but our cycles, like are the same. We experience from a physical standpoint the same things, and we both started experiencing these symptoms of being perimenopausal.
And they are real. Like,
oh my God.
They're so, just like anything in life, you always hear the term, if my mama would have told me, or if I knew. I don't think if my mother, my aunt, my sister, my best friend, my cousin had ever told me anything about menopause or perimenopause approaching, that would have prepared me for what we're experiencing now. And I just feel like, this whole perimenopausal thing it's real. And even during my cycle, I didn't experience, it was like clockwork. Every 3 to 5 days, right on time, every 26 days it would show up, same cramps. And now, beginning to miss my cycles, I'm beginning to experience mood swings, which I've never experienced in the past. And there are some other things that we're not going to say on camera,
right?
But are definitely real. If you Google it, I'm probably going through about 50% of the things that you're seeing. So,
and unique to us as our experience is, our symptoms, and that's something else. And I was joking, but I'm serious about, because I have other friends who are going through the same thing, that we need to each write a chapter in this book about everything they don't tell you about, perimenopause, being, going through menopause, and then postmenopause. Like those, they're each 3 different phases. They're very, serious in terms of nature of what you experience. Your experiences are unique. All this stuff that I'm experiencing. Outside of the conventional hot flashes, night sweats, and what else? I think
itching. I got some itching going on, and the thing about it is it's just not perimenopause, right? It's the approach, just the advanced ages as we just go from one decade to another. There's just so many different things that we're beginning to see with, the same youthful face that I've seen when I was younger. I'm starting to see changes in my face and my body and my digestion,
posture,
just
everything.
All of that, and we just have to be very supportive of one another and very transparent. And I think that's what's kind of helped us. Rona and I, we're very, to a fault. Like, girl, did you really just show me that? Like, did you really just share that with me? But okay, that's helpful because now I know when and if I see that
you know what it is.
And it's a safe space because now I know I have permission to do the same thing back to her.
Absolutely.
So just being able to have, this circle of women or the ability to just be transparent and vulnerable really is like 75% of the battle, because the body is going to do what the body is going to do.
Absolutely.
It's just how do we,
absolutely,
how do we kind of support each other to get through it? Because there's nothing that we can do about the physical except like our diet and some of those things.
Exercise helps, from my understanding.
Yeah, but from my understanding too. But I don't know that I want to engage in that. Right.
Well, that's my most challenged area.
Exactly.
I might add, but
so sometimes surgery can help with that. That's a whole nother podcast
conversation. Right.
But for the most part, just being able to have you as a sounding board and to be fortunate to be going through some of the same things at the same time has just been very, very helpful. And we're pretty young, so I personally think that some of the COVID effects have thrusted us into this phase sooner than possible. That's a whole nother topic as well.
Absolutely.
But we're in our 40s, and to be seeing these symptoms as strong and as prevalent as we're seeing them, I think there's some other environmental things that we're dealing with.
Causing that.
Yeah.
And I would definitely agree. All of my recordings have been so rewarding, and this exchange with you has very much been consistent as the others, from the respect that it's just been, somebody, but then you don't know them until you can sit down and have a conversation. And as much as we talk, we're always talking about everythting that we have going on, and we talk about each other's experiences too, and things that we're dealing with. But I feel like this right here, I don't know, I'm just like happy. I'm just excited. Because we're usually like getting on and talking because of because of something, you know, having to deal with something with the business or at work, or
Right.
you know, I'm complaining about my children, and she's, you know, I'm using her as a sounding board for that. But just to be able to sit down in a hotel in Las Vegas and just have a conversation and record a podcast and just be, you know, and just be.
And
I think it's
actualize
great.
exactly what we talked about as well. You know,
So-
like you said, we talked about this, and now it's being actualized. And I just feel like anybody who has a thought or a desire or a dream, don't be afraid to actualize it.
So, no questions from the audience because we are wrapping up. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to give you a hug. Thank you for coming to Las Vegas and embarking upon this journey with me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to my podcast, Bathrobe Conversations with Black Women. I, again, am your host, Rona Muhammad. And until next time, peace.